Hello, everyone, and welcome back to NextDev FM, presented by CodeRabbit. Now, Goose, I got a question for you.
Yes.
When you're reviewing like PRs on GitHub, do you do it like manually?
Hell nah. I vibe review.
Wait, how? How do you vibe review?
Well, there's this really awesome product that I really like using. I think you might have mentioned it a few seconds ago.
I think I did. Oh, wait, it's right here. Yeah, CodeRabbit is the sponsor of all NextDev Lives, and they're just amazing. Like they make it so easy to have code review. I literally run it on all of my repos. You don't even have to do anything. That's the best part. It like just auto runs and then it tells you where all the bad code is or like security vulnerabilities or bugs. And you know what the best part is, Goose? You know what the best part is?
What is it?
You don't even have to bring it in to like an editor to like get it to resolve the messages. You can just click resolve and it will resolve in line. Isn't that crazy?
That is pretty convenient.
Well, I think if our viewers, which thank you for viewing, would love to check CodeRabbit out, I think they should go to devlink.run/CodeRabbit to try it out today. Thank you again for CodeRabbit for sponsoring NextDev Live, and thank you to our viewers for watching. So today we're going to bring on a very special guest, Josh. Welcome, Josh. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. It's good to be here on the NextDev Live, the official NextDev Live studio, brought to you by CodeRabbit.
Exactly. You get it. See, we didn't even pay him to say that.
That's right.
I love a good sponsor bit. I love a good
Yeah.
sponsor bit.
You got to make it fun, you know? You don't want to just do one of the boring old ad reads where it's like, CodeRabbit is amazing. And it's even better that I use it myself. It's just like, I mean, I was literally just like 30 minutes ago reviewing some CodeRabbit.
I
There you go.
use it all the time. It's pretty cool. Do you use it?
I
Josh?
I do not use it, unfortunately. So there you go. I ruined it right now.
Have you
I
ever
have to
tried
be
it?
honest though. That's so I could have lied. I could have
Yeah,
brought it
yeah,
full
yeah.
circle.
No, but
But
have you tried it?
I have not tried it actually.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Devlink.run/CodeRabbit.
There you go.
There you
That
go.
seems like a great place to start, huh?
It is a great place to start. Anyways, we'll jump right into it. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started.
Awesome.
I love it.
So, welcome to Next Level. I'm Josh. Super happy to have you. Would love to hear a 2-minute origin story. You have only 2 minutes. Like, how the hell did you end up with software
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing your voice. I'm gonna bump you up a little bit so I can hear you more. What was the question again?
Yeah.
2-minute origin story.
2-minute origin story. 2-minute origin story is, let's go ahead, start the timer. 2-minute origin story is I've always been around tech, loved tech, but never really knew what I wanted to do with my life, and still don't. But for the most part, I always loved kind of like performing, and so I did a lot of musical theater. I wanted to be on SNL for the longest of time. I did some stand-up comedy. I did pretty much everything you could imagine thinking of, and eventually learned that, hey, I don't want to be a waiter my whole life. And so I moved back home, and I started learning more about tech. How can I actually do the things I want to do? Eventually saw that both things could be married. This doesn't hey, I have to do tech, or I have to do things like being on stage or making videos or whatever that might be. I don't have to be a starving artist or a touring musician to do that. And so I eventually found the world of DevRel, and from that moment, a point when DevRel kind of started around 9 years ago, was when I was like, hey, that seems like the role for me. And kind of been climbing the ranks, I guess you could say, since then. Every single position I was in, I kind of gave myself the honorary position of DevRel, and then eventually became an actual paid DevRel most
Right?
recently.
It's really interesting, I will say, because I'm very new into this DevRel sphere, but I've always been this sort of I'm no excessive like back end engineer or anything like that, nor front end. But I've always loved to code, and I can build a pretty good application, like some of my side projects, like Inbound and stuff like that. It's extremely redundant and it follows best coding practices and everything like that. But I've never really liked being like that third level down programmer that's like, all right, write these unit tests. I'm like, oh, I don't really
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. But I was like, I've also loved like creating content and like demonstrating and teaching and everything like that. And it was so funny. Before I joined Neon, I was like, man, how can I like? Nobody wants a role where it's just a guy who does like a little bit of coding, but like a lot of videos. And then Neon came to me and they were like, "Hey, we'll pay you to do this." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Really?" And it's crazy because it's so fun because you get to do that coding, but then you also get to share those resources and like your platform or whatever you're actually working with everyone else, and you kind of get to answer those questions and give demos and show everything off. So yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, it's not for everybody though. I myself enjoy this line of work. I myself switched to Devereaux a few months ago. You're essentially paid to party, if you ask me, right? I mean, you're going to events, you're seeing people, you're just being folksy folk and nice to everybody at the same time while very elegantly shilling a particular product or service.
I always tell
Oh,
my
I just dropped my Neon coupon code.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I just stepped in this. Maybe you would like to see what it is.
Yeah.
Neon. It's funny though because yeah, my wife says the same thing. She says like, "Hey, you just all you do is just shake some hands and kiss some babies and like that. You call it a day kind of thing." And pretty much. It's funny because a lot of the content that I was consuming around like 8, 9 years ago when I was like, hey, this new DevRel thing was hitting the scene. A lot of it was Cassidy Williams, it was Jason Lengstorff, people who were kind of like all also in the X theater world or like stage world in a lot of ways. And so it's cool to see like, oh hey, there's these people writing blog posts or literally just making awesome videos and also getting paid to code at the same time too. And I have a weird back history in the sense that I never was paid as a developer. I've never been paid to write code. Technically until now, I guess. I was always
like,
paid to do other
so
stuff.
you're doing this all for free? Wow, man, I admire the dedication. This is great.
All for free. For the love of the game.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
I was never paid where my job consisted solely of writing code.
That's
And not even partly of writing code, actually.
right.
To be fair.
It's like mostly like the other stuff.
Yeah.
So you call yourself like a serial tinkerer. I'm very much in the same way. I mess with everything that I can kind of get my hands on. And if we go way back and we try to think about this, what was like the first thing that you did where you're like, okay, I'm a developer now, rather than like, oh, I just like put this cardboard or something like that together? Is there any one piece that was like, oh, wow, I just deployed this application or whatever?
Yeah. It's funny because, it's one of those things where I think I've found the perfect role in the sense that I work at Laravel as a DevRel. And for the most part, I didn't technically, I think that shift happened when I started building something in Laravel because it was one of those things where all of my tinkering was like, hey, let me automate this piece. I never felt like a developer. Of course, like that's probably a lot of, I don't know, like imposter syndrome type stuff where I was a support engineer and we would build, I built like a bash script to automate some things in like Excels and CSVs that were like being brought into us. And I wouldn't classify that at the time and probably even now, like nothing really flipped the switch of when I thought of a developer, I thought someone who could build a product from start to finish. That was kind of my idea as a developer. Because I saw all these indie hackers of like, oh, they're building like full products. I do not know how to do that. I know how to build parts of it. I don't know how to build the full thing. And it wasn't until about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I did what I did every night. And my part of my tinkering process I would start the process of learning like a new framework, a new language, a new library, whatever that might be. And I just like to learn it so I knew, hey, if someone said, hey, Rails is really cool, I knew at least, hey, this is what a Rails template looks like. And this is how you create a new database, whatever. And I built one within Laravel and I was like, oh, actually, like this was a lot quicker than I could have done by myself or like within, a T3 stack or something like that. Just for me, it was a lot quicker. It was a lot easier. And so I eventually built my first SaaS. And that was when I think that flip switched. When someone paid me for a product that it wasn't part of my job, all of a sudden I was like, oh, hey, I am an actual developer now. Like I'm not just faking it anymore. This isn't just to make my life easier. This is to make someone else's life easier.
I think it's really interesting. Back a while ago, I always just used to call myself like an integration specialist rather than
Mm.
like a developer or something like that. Because I would never really like make, like you said, like a full product. I would always be like, all right, I got this data. I need to mutate, set up a listener, and then push it into something else. And that took like a bash script, maybe some like simple like Python or whatnot. But I was like, it's never like a real thing. But if I look back now, I'm like, yeah, I was a developer. I built like a pretty robust rate limited Python system that kind of performed. But I was like, yeah, I'm just doing this for a personal project, so it doesn't really count as like true development.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting to see like the imposter syndrome for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the usual React and Node developer community listening, what is PHP Laravel? Could you explain, and why would anybody want to use it?
Yeah. I would say, in my own words, so this isn't like necessarily a pitch. This is just why I started using it and now why I work there. Is it is a batteries included full stack framework. And the reason why I was kind of like exploring a lot, and like Ryan said, I never really felt like a developer because I was in my day job, I was a solutions engineer, usually doing like no code stuff like NAN and make.com. And so I'd be like, oh, let me hook up this webhook and then run some JavaScript. And it felt like, this is really developer stuff. I think it is. I think people who do that, it's the same process. But I didn't. I had a hard time, and I would use things like Firebase, Supabase, stuff like that, to be like, hey, even dabbled with like Pocket Base. That was fun, but I would start to build out this full thing of like, hey, I have authentication now. I have the pieces I need to make a SaaS, but it was always the problem I was looking to solve. There was one more library I need to add, one more tool I needed to learn, one more service I needed to like pay for. And I'm like, this is all my side stuff. I don't really have the time to either learn it, and I don't have the dedication to be able to say like, hey, let me just throw all these things together. And so
Right.
the need for Laravel and PHP, and why I think where it fits within this whole ecosystem, is it's not replacing React. You can use React on the front end. It is instead the glue that kind of holds everything together. So Laravel is a framework that allows you to run PHP code for things like queues, and it all comes in the framework. So you're not reaching for an external library. You have things like queues. It's opinionated on how you talk to a database. It's opinionated on, what you do for scheduling cron jobs, that kind of thing. And it's all in this mostly readable type format that you're not saying, okay, I need to break into this other package and now I need to figure out how does that package work. Since it all lives within Laravel, it's all maintained by Laravel. If I want to switch from a MySQL database to a Postgres database, it's like one line of code. Yeah, that still is the same thing with something like, a Drizzle or something like that. But at the same time, it's also the same library that I can now run in my queues. And it's the same library that I can run in my front end controller with Inertia and React, which Inertia is basically the glue to hold your React front end to a Laravel application. Think of it as, instead of having to write these API calls and then talk to your server, instead you're just serving up these React front end view files, and you have all the niceties on your back end. You're just instead pushing all those props to the front end.
Gotcha. So it's like a server rendered React, but like the inertia is doing like the classic PHP inserts of all of like the user data and whatnot, if not more.
Even more on a much more basic level. Of course, there are packages to run Node, basically like server-side rendering React, so you don't have to have all of this client-side. But at the very basic level, it is a client-side React application that is instead served props from the server. And you have like a form component on the client that you can then talk to the server. So there's no server props just yet in the sense of like being able to interact with the server. It's more of like, okay, instead of having to write an SPA and then using, Axios, Kai, whatever you want to write to connect it, it just works. You don't have to do all of those connection pieces.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you kind of went into Laravel from the JS ecosystem, right?
I did.
What
Yeah.
was like the biggest, because I am heavy into the JS ecosystem, and it's nothing where it's like, oh, I hate PHP. I love PHP. PHP was actually one of, I think I did a live stream a while ago, and I think you joined it, where I was talking about how, I don't know what version of PHP it was, but like the first version of like my 3D printing company website was in PHP, and I just loved it because it was batteries included, even not with like a full framework thing. It's like auth and all the other stuff was kind of just like set up and working, and the funniest part about that is I had a single request, so I had like a form, and when you submitted that form, it would have like a 3D model file attached to it, and this is just a great story. When you submitted that, it would hit like API like slice or whatever,
Okay.
and that's a PHP route. It would accept the form data, right? Then it would slice, render, upload, and calculate pricing all on one request, and it took like 2 minutes for the full page to like render.
Yeah.
And the funny part is I was running it on my home desk. This is when I was like 12. I
Yeah.
was running it on my home desktop. It was like a gaming rig, so it would like process like the slicing for like the 3D printing pretty quickly. So it would probably load on my page in about 20 seconds. But on the $4 DigitalOcean VPS I was running it on, it didn't have a GPU. It had like zero point 0.5 vCPU, and it
Yep.
would take 2 minutes to render. And I'm like, why am I not getting any customers? This is just like, I've got a great product, great service. It looks amazing. And then I actually did a live test of it, showing someone, and it took 2 minutes. It worked, but it took 2 minutes. And I'm like, ooh, let's see how I can do async. And that's where I jumped into that. But no, I love
Yeah.
PHP. But what's like the biggest mindset shift from like JavaScript to the Laravel ecosystem?
Yeah, I think the biggest mindset shift, that's a great question because I think a lot of people usually ask me of like, okay, like the reason why, and a lot of it is like, personal stuff of I was using everything on serverless and kind of like what you did, like I didn't know how to do a long-standing job in the stack I was using within JavaScript.
Right.
And so I was like, this seems easy. I can literally just push it to this queue and then it just works in the background and I don't have to think about it. But I think the mindset shift has come, and one of the things I enjoy, but also is like different at the same time. And there's things like on the front end that make this a little bit easier within Laravel for me, kind of like a more PHP-esque front end templating system called Livewire, which is more akin to HTMX or something like a live view in Phoenix or something like that. But I think the biggest mindset shift is kind of realizing where the server and the client are separated. I think with modern JavaScript, at least like the stuff that I was very heavily into, it was one of those things where it was very client focused and you would kind of pick which parts you wanted on the server. And I think it's still to this day like some of that. You don't see too many server driven frameworks within the JavaScript system. It's very much like, hey, here's your client. And then if you need a server, let's pipe this as a server API route within like SvelteKit or Next.js, whatever that might be. And I think within Laravel specifically, but any server rendered thing that I just wasn't aware of, I had to have this mindset shift of, okay, I shouldn't be doing things like storing this value of the cart on the client that's now a store, at least with this stack. If I'm using the tools that's given to me, I shouldn't store this client as a value in like a Redux store and then have it make sure it's pulled in all the different areas. I should just put it into the cache and then pull it from the cache and make sure that that's in sync everywhere else. And so it's this mindset shift of realizing that I could just use the tools given to me rather than trying to come up with it on my own.
Yeah, I had an inverse of that. Obviously, it's a very jank thing, but in raw PHP, there's the session variable,
Okay,
and
yeah.
what I would do is I would literally have just like a couple functions that would just add or get from session like the file IDs for like the cart, and it worked amazing because it was all like localized to that session. I'm sure there was probably a better way I could do it, but it just worked. It was like 2 lines of code everywhere to get the cart information. Then when I moved to Python, I was like, okay, where's the session variable? Oh, wait, it doesn't track session.
Yeah.
Oh, I need an auth provider. Okay. Oh, wait, then I have to do a database call for what? Wait,
Interesting,
what?
yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's like an inverse thing. So I've definitely missed the it just works
Yeah.
part of thing.
Yeah,
It's
I kind of missed this part of like batteries included being the default in web dev, and
Yeah.
that PHP is still like the ecosystem that does that fairly well, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of the framework that I really liked using in the JavaScript world was a lot of Svelte and SvelteKit, and there was so much stuff that I liked. And I think Laravel, in some ways, it's very much, if you have ever played around with Svelte and SvelteKit, most of the time people say, I like that this is like, it feels very magical in a lot of the things that it does, but it's not too much magic. It's like opinionated in the right areas, and that's why I think like Laravel kind of really shines, or at least like takes it to like that same level, just with adding everything to the back end as well. In the sense that there's so much I think that within like Svelte and SvelteKit where it's like, hey, I could know how to make all of these like variables reactive, and I could like figure out how to do all this like within vanilla JavaScript, but like, do I want to, or do I want to add like another library and so I can just use, this store variable, and now it's just in sync across everything, or it stays this variable with a $sign : now stays reactive when if I change anything else on the screen. And that same kind of magic is what I kind of experienced within Laravel, when I was like, oh, if I wanted to, the main thing was like auth. If I wanted to show someone's username on the screen, I could literally in a server rendered template put like auth : user, and then it's just there. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I didn't write any code. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how do you look at like getting started with Laravel for a new project? Because there's a lot of options for hooking up to a front end, right? You mentioned Laravel, Alpine, or you can do Nurture with whatever, Vue, Svelte, whatever. So how do you approach selecting your stack?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, especially because I think it's one that I kind of think from like two perspectives almost, because I think of it from the, hey, this is what I did, and if you are like me, you should probably do what I did because of my learning process and because of why I think about it. But then there's also like that flip side of the coin, kind of like if we were talking about like the DevRel perspective of, I'm also trying to think of, okay, anyone who is new and we're building out this kind of a new boot, we're calling it like the Laravel boot camp in the ways of like, how do you actually get started? Instead of just the documentation, what's like a good, easy to follow tutorial to do all of this?
Right. Don't
I
need to. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's kind of like two sides of the coin. It's one, realizing what you need to know or unlearn, and then two, it's trying to facilitate not too many paralysis of options from the get-go. And that's usually what people usually come to me with questions about. It's like, hey, I want to learn Laravel, or like I was trying to figure this out, and now all of a sudden I have to pick of like, okay, am I going to do like React? But then now I'm learning how the React talks to Laravel, and I don't feel like I'm touching Laravel. And it's this whole process in a lot of ways. And so I think the thing that I really have kind of dove into a lot within my job as like a DevRel is the fact of like, okay, what are the pieces that make Laravel Laravel? And then what are the pieces that you'll just kind of pick up along the way? And so I think it's less to me about the front end stuff and more of like, okay, you already know, especially if you're a developer who is familiar with something like React or Vue or Svelte, you already know like how that works, how a template works, how you use a form. But then do you know like, okay, what is like how are you passing props to a route? How are you doing background queue jobs, how are you like using a mailer or anything like that? And being able to
Right.
show all that in a concise way then makes the second step a whole lot easier. Like, oh, I don't have to worry about my front end because all of my back end is kind of taken care of.
Yeah, makes sense. So I think PHP is dated, is what some people might say. What would you have to say to people like that who are like, PHP just sucks? It's like, it's all the way from the early 2000s. What would you say to that?
Yeah. It's funny. I'm not the best person to answer that. One, because I didn't actually write in. A lot of people have backgrounds with PHP. I think that that's where like that usually like frustration comes through is,
Especially
hey,
the WordPress era.
oh yeah. Of like I wrote PHP 5 or 4 or whatever that might be, and even I think 5 was. See, I don't even really know. I didn't start. I technically did redesign WordPress themes, but I never touched PHP. It was more of like a, hey, I just changed some variables in PHP and then I
Right.
did that. So I didn't really code in it. But I always point people who say that to, there's this guy in the Laravel ecosystem, and probably you've seen him on Twitter, this guy named Aaron Francis, and he has a video basically about like why PHP isn't outdated. For example, PHP 8.5 next month. It's gonna be released soon. It's in beta right now. It has pipeline operators, so something that like even JavaScript doesn't have. But I don't have the baggage that comes from what PHP used to be. So to me, it doesn't feel like any language that I've recently learned. I've recently learned Elixir. I've recently learned Rust. I've recently learned Go and PHP. Like all that feels just in the same realm, obviously for different, use cases or different experiences, but it doesn't feel any different. I think it comes down to the fact that PHP is still getting better. Like there's a team behind it making the same changes that any other language is making as well. It's gotten faster. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think from PHP 5 to PHP 8, it's something like 200% faster or something like that.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It's one of those things where usually if something is slow, or if you're wanting to run, 100, 300,000 requests a second, it's probably doable with PHP. But if you're wanting to run millions of requests a second, you're probably already a specialist in some other language.
Right.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one thing I wanted to mention, and you touched upon this. Like Laravel is actually evolving quite a lot, and there's been like some funding flowing into this area with the, the new blood flowing into the PHP industry and trying to make Laravel cool, and all of these like inertia, things. I think it happened like a year and a half ago. It's been amazing to observe. Like so many cool things became available to people who've been stuck in the PHP realm. Now they can, dip their toes into the new SoyDev JS experience, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Exactly. No, it is interesting to see because I feel like I saw most of this from the outside in. I didn't start working at Laravel until May of last year, so May of 2024, and I was already experiencing and observing the community and the shift. I think it started before I joined, of course, but like that shift had already started to happen probably mid 2023, I think, and early 2024, and I think a lot of it has not changed. It's probably just been accelerated since the funding. Like people in the community were kind of like worried. It's like, oh, hey, this thing that hasn't taken funding for 10 years now is taken funding. And now there's, 100, we have, I think, close to, 85, 90 people who are on the Laravel team now, where before in the beginning of 2024, I think there was like 8.
Right.
So it's this huge shift, and like you said, Dan, there's things that have come since then. Inertia was a community package that was kind of just coasting along. There wasn't too many additions to it because it was created by Jonathan Renning, who works at Tailwind. And so before he joined Tailwind, he had built this out, and it kind of just existed. And Laravel team brought it into its wing, under its wing and its fold, and brought it to Inertia 2.0. There's been things like, even just in the open source side of things, there's been things like the Laravel official VS Code extension. There's been updates to the framework. There's updates every week, but there's been like some big updates to how you do things like live, so like any kind of like WebSocket type stuff, as well as like server driven event sourcing things, event driven pack WebSockets. But then there's also like the product side of Laravel too, which is this kind of, two sides of the coin. There's like this open source side of making the Laravel framework better and bringing more people into the fold and seeing, hey, there's things that Laravel continues to improve, not just because of PHP, but with PHP. And then there's the product side of like, how do you make people who are either new to Laravel, how does it become easier to deploy? And so that's with Laravel Cloud, where it's like a one-click deploy with a GitHub repository, as well as some other things for people who have been in the Laravel ecosystem, things like Nightwatch, which is kind of like an event monitoring system, as well as updates that are coming soon for Laravel Forge, which is kind of like a server-driven deployment system. So I feel like there's all of these products that already existed or had been in people's minds from the get-go, but then that funding kind of just pushed it further along and just accelerated it. It's crazy.
And I think there's a natural hype when a project gets funded, where it's like, if you see money's going to it, then people who wouldn't normally be going to it would be like, oh, well, if there's money going towards it, then I'll go and learn it, because then if there's money, then it could be my money. You know what I mean? So I think that like sort of natural correlation would help too. But
that's interesting, especially because, I think it's one of those things where I think I definitely saw it as that even before I got hired. I kind of was aware that they had just received funding, and then, but people seeing it from either the outside in who are kind of aware of it. A lot of people think, hey, this is good. And there are people who are more hesitant, maybe in the community, of like, okay, this is going to change things. It's not just the Laravel of yesterday, and now it's all going to be pushed to, hey, let's make more money. And I think the cool thing just in the past year has been that doesn't seem to be the case, and I don't think that is the case, in the sense that it's, if anything, is accelerated everything that has already been great about Laravel, things that got me excited about Laravel even before joining the team. And if anything, it just seems to be talked about more, and I'm all for that.
yeah, I've definitely seen that, and especially since I went to Laracon, you can
you were
see
there.
that. Yeah, it was a great conference. I was honestly kind of worried that I'm like, because I know nothing about like modern day PHP, and I'm like, I'm literally just gonna be standing at like the neon booth, being like, yeah, so we do Postgres databases. What do you know about that? Oh, you're doing some other thing. Yeah, no, but it was really great. I think, and I know we shared this like internally, but that was like the most high signal, low noise like event that we've been to. Every single person at like the booth was like, hey, oh, I'm super interested, maybe for a side project. And obviously Laravel Cloud is powered by Neon under the hood. And they're like, oh, we use you already? And everyone was like interested. And I was like, really? That's interesting. Because like at every other conference, whether that be like enterprise or whatnot, it's been like, oh, okay, cool, take the card, where's your merch, but they were actually interested in the product a lot, like 9 out of 10 people, I would say. And I was like, wow, this community is like really, really great. I love it.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, it is one of, like, I've gotten the chance to go to a couple different tech conferences, and then a lot of different Laravel conferences kind of around the world, smaller meetups, bigger meetups, that kind of thing. It's always cool. I think that it seems like the goal of each conference is never like, hey, let's see how much of X we can sell, or let's see how much of Y we can sell. It's usually always like, hey, like, here's like a cool thing. Maybe you want to build a project with it next week, or when you get back to the hotel, that kind of thing.
Right.
I think most of the open source stuff that like either now powers most of Laravel, or just even like Taylor Otwell's side projects, usually were conceived like on the plane ride to and from Laracon. So it's crazy how much, if anything, if those kind of conferences didn't exist, most of the stuff in the Laravel community probably wouldn't exist either. It is wild.
Wow, this guy ships.
It's crazy. But that's the there's some stickers that were kind of given out at Laracon this year. It's like a Coke Zero that just says ship on it. It was pretty
Oh
cool.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, it's some great merch.
Yeah. Man,
There you go.
I feel the FOMO now. I shouldn't have missed it. I'll be there
Yeah.
next year.
Come, the more the merrier. We'll come. I'll hook you up with some stickers next year.
Hell yeah.
There we go.
Awesome.
Maybe even one of these.
What? What do you got?
Maybe even one of these. Little.
Oh yeah, those were good.
Yes. This is why I should have stuck with PHP. I would have had a Lambo by now. Oh wow.
I've got one.
Anywho, so I've heard you read the entire Laravel documentation on camera at some point in the past. Why?
It's a great question. That's a great question as to why, at least. I don't know. I had a spare. It was over a holiday weekend, so I was like, I wasn't working anyways. My wife and kids were going to be out of town, and I was like, if I'm going to stay up, like I might as well do something like for the content. Like even if I didn't. I had much less followers at that time, much less like subscribers on YouTube, but there was still like a good, I don't know, like 50 to 100 people who stayed with me throughout the whole 14 hours that I read most of it.
Was it a live stream?
It was a live stream. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that for, I don't know what docs I would do, but I was thinking about doing that for some docs, and just like on like a weekend when like my girlfriend's gone or something like that,
There
just
you go.
like read it, just like an old Mr. Beast style type thing.
Exactly. That was what that was what inspired it. It was kind of like threefold. Old Mr. Beast style. I was like, if I'm gonna, be known for, or just even like be talked about for half a day for one thing, like it'd be cool to do like something absolutely crazy. Two, Aaron Francis in the PHP community was around that same time also being popular for printing out just pieces of documentation. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy a printer. I'm gonna print out all 1,600 whatever pages it was. I had to buy like 2 sets of toner because I ran out of printer ink like halfway through. It was like a brother
funny.
printer too, so it was like
Yeah.
I printed through the whole thing. And then I was like, I might as well just do this live. So I had all the stacks of paper. I printed live. I didn't read code blocks, so anything longer than 3 lines of code, I didn't read it. I just kind of like gave a gist of it, and I kept going. And then TJ DeVries, he did a reading through the NeoVim manual. Like it was probably like a week before I decided to do this, because I was like, okay.
Ah, looks like
There we
you
go.
copied him then.
Yeah, exactly. I did. Not ashamed of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely notable, and we'll have to see how well I do on whatever documentation I pick. I'll probably do like the Next.js documentation or something like that. I'll honestly probably learn a ton of stuff. I'll be like, oh, no way.
That was me for sure. It's out of date. It was out of date like 2 days after I read it, but at the same
Right.
time, it was fun because I learned so much. Like, oh, that's interesting. Like I didn't know about that. Yeah, my voice started giving out. I feel like I talk a lot, so like I'm used to that. But just drink a lot of tea because my voice started to give out. I thought I was going to lose my voice at around like 7 hours. And
Really?
then it pushed through, and then I was like, okay, this is fine.
Yeah,
But
I feel like I need just like a little
it was close for
camelback
good.
right here. Just like
Yeah.
be able to take a hit of water really quick. All right,
Oh,
keep
yeah.
going. So, you have an interesting journey, obviously. This was kind of like at the starting of your journey, that sort of docs reading. So, you worked on side projects, then you started gaining a following on YouTube, and then now you're at Laravel. What was like did you have like a playbook for like how to do this, or just winging it?
My playbook is copying people who I admire and basically saying, okay, here's all these people who are doing awesome things. How can I do that, but just like be myself through it? And I think that was the piece I tried my best to do. I feel like I tried so much even before I started the YouTube channel, but that was a lot of the turning point too. Is I didn't know if I wanted to do be like a full-time SaaS founder. I had built a SaaS. I got to like a decent MRR with it, and at the time I had just got fired from my job, and I was like, okay, um, maybe I'll just go jump into that. And slowly I was like, I don't really like the whole. I'm on sales calls 4 hours a day, and then I'm also trying to code, and I'm trying to market it. I didn't care for that. I liked building new things, and eventually just started making my first YouTube video, which essentially was my, hey, here's why I choose Laravel. And it's funny looking back at like pictures or like texts that I sent to my wife at the time, because I was really pumped. It got, in like the first week, I think it got like 300 views, and I was
Nice.
so pumped. I was so pumped. I was like, I think I got 300 views and like 100 subscribers the first week, and I was like, this is awesome. And then like it's just crazy to think about. Like that video is still one of my top 5 videos on my whole channel. I think it has close to 50,000 views now, and it's one of those things where it kind of shifted a lot of how I think about what I want to do. Like I said, I still don't know, but following in the steps of people who are one step ahead of me, and then also trying to keep in mind of like, okay, who can I be in 10 years, has been super helpful. And I think it kind of gave me that playbook of, okay, like even as stupid as the thing like with Tej reading the Neovim documentation. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have as many people watching it as him. It's not going to be as entertaining because he's a lot funnier than I am. But like, I could make it my own, still be stupid and dumb. Aaron Francis makes high quality PHP videos. I am not as skilled in PHP or as skilled of a communicator as him, but I can still make videos well and maybe share like my own point of view of, hey, I was a developer in JavaScript and now I do this. Here's my perspective. And yeah, so I think it's been helpful to keep that like next step in mind, and then like the next 10 steps. Like
Right.
I personally have a goal that by the end of next year, I'd love to be to 100,000 subscribers, and like having it either like replace my full-time income or like or at least like up on par with it too. So like I think having those goals is huge for me.
Right. Yeah. I think, and even if you don't hit the 100K, I still do think you'll probably land around what, 80, 90K, which
Yeah.
is amazing. So yeah, I think it's definitely a like a situation where it's like shoot for the star, shoot for the, what is it? Shoot for the moon, you'll land among the stars or something like that. That's why it's
Yep.
like you always set extremely unrealistic goals for you, and um, you'll be better. You'll be better. That's
Wait,
all it is.
a Twitch chatter said you've tripled in the last year on the follower. Is that correct?
Probably. So I know that current subscribers on YouTube is like around close to 17,000. I think I hit 10,000 at the end of last year. So that slowed down a little bit. But then even like, Twitter follows has been kind of crazy too, in the sense like I think last year, like beginning of last year, I think I had 2,000 followers, and I'm close to 7,000 now. So it's one of those things where like I don't keep track of that progress as much, but it is also nice to know, kind of like what you said, Ryan. It's like it's one of those things where like I want extremely almost unachievable goals, but at the same time, if I hit them, I don't want to be surprised either at the same time too. Like I want to be like, oh, like that makes sense. I see it in almost every area of my life, which is absolutely crazy. Of like even personal things of like family, kids, that kind of thing, or like being in this house, like with this studio. I never thought I would have like the time or space to be able to like build my own
Right.
stuff the way I wanted it, and it happened. But I knew that that's what I wanted. And same thing with like now working as a dev role. I remember when I was I think it was like 25 or something. I was like, okay, by the time I'm 30, I want to be like have a DevRel job.
Right.
I didn't make it until
kind
like
of
31, but
it
we'll
kind of
pass.
bites you in the butt too sometimes,
Oh yeah.
where you'll be like, because like for example, I'll give a personal example. I'm 21 right now. I'm still in
Yeah.
college. I've got I think a
You're
year
youngin'.
left in college, and when I was like about to begin my freshman year of college, I was like, I want a Tesla by the time I graduate from college, like fully buy a Tesla.
Yeah.
And like 3 months ago, I bought a Tesla, and instead of being like yes, I'm kind of just like, good. All right, what's next? All right, now to buy the Lamborghini yacht. All right, let's go do that.
There you
And
go.
and it's like with those things where it's like if you I think it happens to me a lot because I don't know if I have like unrealistic expectations of myself, but I'll just be like, I accomplished this like really crazy thing if you kind of think about it, like compared to like everyone else. But I'm just like, all right, good. What's next?
Yeah.
I feel no sort of satisfaction. I just feel completion. I'm like, all right, mark that off the list. Great. What's our next challenge? So yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing with goal setting against the time horizon, right? Like you get there and then you're like, what's next? You have,
right,
let's say you have like a very big goal, like I don't know, buy a cool apartment. Then you buy the apartment and you have nothing else, and you're like, what did I do this for? What was the point? I noticed this a lot in a lot of people's lives, and it seems like people don't really know what they need to be happy, or
right.
rather, yeah, like
It's
yeah,
it's always interesting too. Whenever I do like a job interview or anything like that, it's like they're like, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I'm like, I don't want to say an answer because if I set an expectation for myself, then that's going to be my essentially my max, right? So it's like, let's say, for example, inbound, my personal project. I want to get inbound to $10,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue. If I hit that in like 4 months, I'm just gonna like, all right, good to chill back for a couple of years or something like that. And if I leave that like sort of max value or max expectation open ended, I feel like I do a lot better because then it's not like, all right, I'm just sticking to this schedule. You're just always working and you're always exploring.
Yeah. I think there's kind of like two different types of people. Like all of us are probably like the first type where you kind of need the you need the next step goal as well as the 5-step goal as well as the reflective goal. While there's a lot of other people who have a trouble seeing, okay, I don't necessarily know what's next. It's hard to put that what's next piece of the I don't know what's tomorrow, what's next week, what's next month in terms of like goals for specific, you know, knowledge area or goals for like specific project or that kind of thing. So I'm very firm believer in the sense of any goal that you have, as soon as you get it, one, you shouldn't just kind of write it off of, okay, like we're done. But two, it should also be like a stopping point to like the next piece. And I think most people in our world, like us three here, like I would say a lot of times we probably would do better if we were more reflective of things that happen. Of like, okay, I hit this. One, why? Two, how does it feel? Three, what can I change to be next? And I think that reflective piece, that almost like I still do this like with my videos. Like I watch like all of my videos, and sometimes like I'll watch them like 5 months later or a year later, and I like to do that reflective piece of like, okay, I thought this was really good at the time. Why is it not good? Or even like the one that just came out, like I thought this was good. Why is it not? What could I do better? But what did I do great? And I think a lot of times for people like us, it's hard to appreciate the wins while also still looking towards the next piece too.
Yeah.
yeah. Looking ahead is the
Oh
important
yeah,
piece here.
looking ahead.
Anywho, bringing it back to Laravel. So, AI boom happened, right? And
Boom.
everybody's talking AI, everybody's talking LLMs, and there's a bunch of developer tooling in that direction that is appearing everywhere, right? But there isn't. I mean, all of this, or a significant majority of it all, is happening in the JavaScript ecosystem. So, what are your thoughts on like what it's going to do to the PHP
Mm.
ecosystem? And have you seen any AI movement in that ecosystem at all?
Yeah. No, great question. I think one, it's a lot better than most people think. So usually, what people say, um, you know, if I ask ChatGPT to make this app, it's going to default to what? React and Next.js kind of thing, because that is modern knowledge of what it knows. But it's LLMs are still really good at seeing past context of like documentation and stuff like that. And I'm willing to bet, just because I've been there, that most of the time the thing that hurts LLMs the most with current JavaScript iterations of Next.js, React, that kind of thing, is usually they are always like 1 year out of date. And so then it's like, oh, I don't want Next.js app router. I want Next.js, or I don't want Next.js pages router. I want app router, that kind of thing. And then you have to feed a documentation, context 7, whatever you might do. There's a lot of tools now that help with that. But I think one thing that Laravel has shined within AI, and I think it's only going to consistently get better, is the fact that a lot of stuff has not changed within Laravel for years. It has been consistent for 10 years plus of how to do things. Of course, there are some new additions that's like, oh, you could make this whole 10 lines of code 1 line of code, because there's now a helper for that. But it doesn't change how it works. And so I think that's been...
It would still work.
Yep, exactly. It would still work. It wouldn't necessarily might look the best code, but it still works. It still functions. And if you're doing something like React on the front end, then you have the ability of LLMs to work with that. I think the piece that hurts right now, and Laravel official has a project coming out to even help with this, is usually it's like the newer pieces that you want, that is like up-to-date documentation. It's like inertia 2.0 stuff that you want to do more WebSocket or real-time event type stuff, and that's like in the last year. So LLMs, unless you feed it that documentation, are not very good with that. But there's a package coming out pretty soon. It was just announced at Laracon called Laravel Boost, which is basically an easy way to interact with AI, regardless of what AI you use or LLM you use, what provider you use. It will find what packages you're using within your Laravel project, and then bring in that documentation, bring that documentation locally for then your AI to use and to peruse and to make it better. So I honestly think Laravel is probably one of the better options for LLMs right now, and I think like Rails probably like fits this as well, mostly because things don't change.
Right. They're more of like an industry enterprise framework, and you can't really be having like breaking every version release.
Yep.
And if there is, you're only on like version 2 of if there's like 30 versions. So yeah, I definitely believe that the one thing that, because AI really can't grow any better, it's just all about context now. It's like about if you have the relevant context for everything, and the boost stuff definitely would be of great assistance, because then that way it's like it auto grabs. It's like context 7, but like auto, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's super helpful. But yeah, that's cool.
Really curious though. So, would you recommend people learn Laravel if you're looking for their first ever software development job?
It's a great question. It's one that sparked a lot of debates. I'll kind of put it this way. If your goal is to literally do nothing but to get a job, then I would say find the language that is close to the jobs around you, especially if you're a new developer. A lot of people hate this, and I only have worked remote tech jobs, but most jobs are not remote, or most like jobs that you're probably able to get as a junior developer are probably not remote. And so I would literally, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. Most of the companies around me in Phoenix, Arizona are probably using something like Java or C#. And so if I would say find just search for software developer jobs around you, and if it was all in Java, C#, I don't know, .NET, then just learn that. If your whole focus is I just want a job so that I can do this, I think, as a caveat, depending on your ability, or not even ability, depending on how your brain functions, a lot of people like to learn multiple things side by side. I'm like, hey, I'm going to learn Java, but I'm also going to learn JavaScript, and I'm also going to learn, how to, build a, I don't know, a 3D printer by myself. Like all things. Like usually, some people just like to stay on one track. I would say it's beneficial to learn multiple things at once when it comes to software development. And so I would be one of those persons that like, okay, you're learning the language to pass a a job interview for whatever job is close by you, but learn Laravel or something like it so that you can know all the pieces that connect to a full stack application. Because you're gonna just blow your employer's mind out of the water when you're like, hey, this is a snippet of code of Java of how to do this, but if I was in an application, oh yeah, I would need this router to then push this to a queue. And like if you can automatically talk about how each part of a application works, then you're gonna go great. And I think Laravel's taught me that because it's all involved.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
But
Cool.
if I was just another caveat to that caveat, if I was someone who was like, I just want to build products that I can make money on the side, and maybe you are fine with your day job that's either a developer job or something else, I think Laravel is a perfect option for that because it gets you from start to finish so fast that you're not worrying about, okay, I need to learn 15,000 different tools and packages to get this one SaaS put together.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Cool. So we'll do a quick lightning round before we wrap up.
Sweet.
What is just a bunch of random questions? What is your favorite taco spot versus your go-to Taco Bell order?
Okay. Favorite taco spot versus my go-to Taco Bell order. My favorite taco spot, if I'm wanting to just get tacos, there's a chain of restaurants in Phoenix, Arizona called, there are a bunch of different names. The one closest by me is called Federico's. And every Tuesday I have a Tuesday taco special. They're good. You can get like they're like the taco burrito kind of thing. I love those. My favorite Taco Bell order would probably be a 3-cheese chicken flatbread, probably 2 of those, extra chicken, light cheese, extra sauce, 1 cheesy bean rice burrito, 1 Baja Blast large, 0, and then 1 nachos, the $2
Nice.
nachos.
Wow.
Yeah, big on the Baja Blast. That is for sure.
I buy the 0 ones in cans and I just put them in my fridge.
Really,
Yeah.
I savor the Baja Blast to only get at Taco Bell. That's my sort
There
of
you go.
restraint. So we're running up on time here, and we always ask this on the show. And if you've watched the show before, I'm sure you know the answer. But if you could give yourself one piece of advice 10 years ago, what would it be?
It's funny because I knew this question was coming, but I still didn't come up with something good. But I think the piece of advice I would give is that I was settling for too little, and I wasn't trying for too much. And so I think the piece of advice that I would give, kind of like almost fall back to our previous conversation, would be like, a lot of times, most of the things that I just kind of wrote off as 1, I couldn't do it, 2, it would never be possible, or 3, I just don't have the time to do it. I am probably like the busiest I have ever been, but I'm going to be busier next year. I'm going to be busier next month. I'm going to be busier next week. All of that was just excuses. And most of the time, the thing that I would want to tell my 10-year-old self, or 10 years ago self, is that just stop making excuses.
Yeah, just build. Just
Yeah.
mess around, tinker. Yeah.
Tinker, ship, build, and have
Yeah.
fun doing it.
Yeah.
I've never had more fun coding than I have now.
Yeah,
Right
I
on.
agree.
And if you could share a piece of advice with yourself from 2-3 years ago when I think you got laid off, what would that be?
It'd probably be to not stop beating myself up in a lot of ways too. I think a lot of times, especially like us who are like very go-getters, kind of like what we talked about, it's like, oh, like I'm not where I want to be. Like I suck. Like I'm a failed developer. I'm a failed YouTuber. I'm all of these things. And so it's that piece of like being content with where you are, but also knowing that like you do have more to give and more effort to put in, and it's a tough balance. I'm never gonna find that balance, and maybe that's a good thing.
Wow. All right. Well, we're at the end of the episode. It is your opportunity to do a 2-minute honorary plug. Sell whatever you want. 2 minutes.
Oh man. Sell whatever I want. If you go to Laravel.com, you can see my face as a welcome to Laravel video. Here's all the things. So that's fun.
Are you on the homepage?
I am on the homepage.
Ooh,
I'm
let's
on the
look.
homepage. If you scroll a little bit, that video will pop up or in the top
There
right
it
corner.
is.
That is me, my lovely face.
Nice.
But a plug. I have a podcast, a show myself that we do on Fridays, 11 a.m. PST or 2:30 p.m. CST. I think is what it is, or EST, 2:30 p.m. EST. I'm not going to be on it this week because I'm out of town. I'm on vacation. But join my co-host Will, and that's it's called the Riff and Refine podcast or Riff and Refine show. Will King on Twitter, or you can find it on YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm excited for it this week. I'm not going to be on, but I'm going to be watching.
That's awesome. Well, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on today, Josh. It was a
pleasure
great
to be here.
episode. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for Code Rabbit for sponsoring today's live. Yeah, check us out. We are now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube.
Where are
Mail
we?
in.
We're everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You can submit a form on our website, and we'll mail you a CD of the
Ooh.
latest episode. We should
Okay.
do that. That'd be fun.
We should do
I feel
that.
like I should
Yes.
do that.
Let's do it.
But
Just
once
do
again, thank
things.
you for watching. We have a packed week this week. We have episodes on Wednesday and Friday, so be sure to tune in to those. But yeah, thanks for coming, and thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.